All right, well, Reckless students, we are back with another wonderful interview. We have the absolute man with us today. He is a singer, a songwriter, a producer. He is a big stuff. He is with Dave Ramsey, and he happens to be the writer and singer of one of my favorite intros to a sports talk station. Chris Cauley is with us today. Chris, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Good to see you guys. What's up, Reckless? Good to see y'all.
You doing all right, man?
We're hanging in there. We're quarantined, man, all across the world, and it's been obviously crazy times.
Well, man, Chris, man, it's so good to have you on. And guys, if you don't know, Chris Cauley has been in the music world forever. Chris, I think you were even before this, but you've been on The Voice, if I'm not mistaken. You have worked all over the world. Doing music, but you've got an amazing heart. If you haven't seen lately on the news, he is performing for condos right now, letting people get out on their balconies. That is an absolutely amazing thing to see. I love seeing that on the news the other day, Chris.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, man.
That was an awesome thing there. So man, how's everything been for you? Everything been going well? That's good.
Everything's as good as can be. I've got it's just me and my wife and a 3-year-old. So if you're ever in quarantine, I love my son more than life itself, but 3-year-old is pretty tough to be quarantined with. Poor guy. He got out of his class, his little preschool. He doesn't understand what's going on, and he misses his buddies. And how do you explain all this to a 3-year-old? So it's been a little challenging.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've been really focusing on trying to focus on positives, and we've had beautiful weather. I've been in the Atlanta area my entire life. I don't remember this long of a stretch of perfect weather. So I'm holding on to that and getting outside and just doing the best we can.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, if you don't mind, man, for whoever may not know who you are in the Atlanta area, which a lot of people do, but give us just a little bit of background about who you are and what you've been doing for a while.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Cumming, Georgia, a good 45 minutes north or so of the city. I still live in Cumming. I'm on the south side near Johns Creek. But yeah, I grew up, I had a theater background. I've always been in music, and I was always super shy. I didn't really sing in front of anyone until probably my senior year of high school, which is funny. But from there, to sum it up briefly, I signed an independent record deal out of high school, which it sounds way cooler than it is. Trust me, it wasn't that cool. But from there, I started acoustic singer-songwriter thing, started touring colleges. I was playing probably 200 shows a year, just road dogging it, state to state, city to city. And from a theater thing, fast forwarding a little bit more, I'm sure some of the students are familiar with Tyler Perry and his work. I was in a stage production with him, like a gospel comedy musical type thing, and we got to tour the country in big theaters, and that was a blast. And kind of been all over the world in a Michael Jackson tribute show that toured overseas, and so I've gotten to see the world just through music, which has been pretty crazy. So it's been a fun ride. Now I own Four Carsons Entertainment, which is a production company. We put on events and source talent. We music direct other events for talent that already exists. We kind of do it all. So it's needless to say, it is a busy day, and no day is the same in our house.
Absolutely. So you've basically been in some way or form involved in music your entire life then?
Yeah, for the most part. Really professionally, as soon as, it's probably 20 years old or so. So about 15, 16 years or so now. It's really all I've ever known, and God's been good to me, but blessing me with that. And I never set out to do this full time, but it's been great.
Awesome. Now I, had heard your name, but finally got to realize who you were first time I ever went to Big Stuff. How long have you been part of the Big Stuff team?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I am the worst person ever with like timelines. So I want to say it's been probably, probably about 8 years, or this would be my 8th year coming up. So 7 or 8 years ish. And I love it, man. I came in as a guest just for one session. I came in, it was when I was on The Voice in 2000. 12. I came in, it was kind of a Q&A type thing, sang a couple songs. And then backstage, I said, hey guys, I really love this. Like, I'd love to be a part of this as just like, not a special guest, but as part of the team. And sure enough, they called me back next year and I was leading worship. So it went from kind of the voice performing for a session to like, hey, no, I want to be a part of the team. And it's just such a family atmosphere. I love it.
Yeah, it definitely is. That's one thing that I think sets, big stuff apart, is that atmosphere and the worship that you guys put on a yearly basis. Coming from a church that had never been to big stuff at all, with the church that I'm at now at Providence Baptist, had always been at other camps, and coming in, there was that trepidation of what are we coming into? Is it going to be the same?
Right.
Are you going to love it? And then all of a sudden, they, after the first night of worship, they're like, all right, we're good. You guys put on such an amazing worship, and it's heartfelt as well.
Yeah.
We were talking about last year's acoustic morning service.
Oh gosh,
that
was special.
As big and as bold as the night services can be, that morning service was just something that was next level. It was really cool. It sort of reminded me when I saw you on the news the other day. It sort of reminded me of that same thing.
Yeah.
When I saw that going on. But
that's funny.
Well, let me ask you this: when it comes to your span, your career, everything that you have been doing, what for you is one of your most memorable moments in music, for that matter? Big stuff. Yeah. Well, but in music general, what's one of your biggest?
So there's probably two things. There's one thing, I touched on it briefly, but being a part of this Michael Jackson tribute show, it was a theater production, something like you'd see in Las Vegas, like a big stage show. And we got to tour the world, and we were in Monte Carlo, Monaco, which is right on the Mediterranean. And our stage looked out at probably the wall was probably 50 feet tall, and it was all glass, and it opened up at night. And we're right on the Mediterranean.
Wow.
I mean, I come from small town Georgia, and being in one of the most richest countries in the world, surrounded by all this crazy wealth and all this stuff. But just looking at the beauty of what I was surrounded with, I really had a moment where I just had to catch my breath. I'm on stage and I'm going, okay, right here, right now in this moment, this is the craziest thing. I cannot believe God's brought me here, of all places. So that was a very vivid memory. And I think just leading worship in general it almost feels like one huge moment. Honestly, if I go to big stuff, and I think it's the connection off stage, really just running into folks. And I'm very conscious of it's easy to look up at the stage, I'm sure, and the big lights, and we're dancing around. It's like, whoa, and it put us up on a pedestal. And I love tearing that down.
Yeah.
I think that's one of it's just, it's human nature to look up on a big stage and see, oh, wow, and just elevate that person in your brain. That's human nature. But one of my favorite things to do each and every camp is just to tear that down and let students and pastors and leaders know, hey, we're just like you guys. We go through the same stuff. Even currently, we might be a little bit older, but man, we have families. We're backstage talking about our lives. We're going through stuff. We're a family for 2 months. And obviously when you get that many people, family members together in 2 months, things happen. So we're going through stuff. We got family members getting ill, or mom and dad are fighting back at home. Hey, I need to talk to my brothers and sisters about this. I mean, it really is a family. So I think that just sticks out more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's an amazing thing for people to realize, that you guys are able to do, but for anyone to realize, because you're right, you can be put on the stage, up on a pedestal very quickly, and people just think, oh, well, everything's perfect in their world. And couldn't be further from the truth. It really can't be anything further from the truth. Think about that Amazon, even if you don't, that's a perfect scenario to hear, I think pastors go through the same exact thing where they're like, oh, he's a pastor, everything's probably good in his life. And it's, it's not that way for anyone. I think it's good for everyone to be able to realize that.
Sure.
So when it comes to your walk with Christ, and tell us a little bit about your walk, your testimony. I mean, been in church, or how's that?
Yeah. So basically my whole life, I've been in church, but it was to somewhat check off a box. You know, it was okay, I went to church or I get my gold star for the week. I did my good deed. Now I'm a good person. And I grew up in a family. I'm an only child, just me and my mom and dad. And there wasn't a lot of communication. And we went to church, but church stayed at church.
Yeah.
You know, I was never taught anything. Like, we came home. I mean, Jesus was never spoken of in my home. Loving, you know, just the principles, the teachings of Jesus were never taught. So it was like, I've got this old book where I can't understand half of it. And I go to this place on Sundays where I'm really tired and I try and stay awake. But that was it. It was very surface level. And it wasn't until, you know, gosh, the last 10, 15 years, where probably 10 years, honestly, where, you know, just like everybody, I hit my ups and downs and hit really, really low, and, you know, touring and the temptations of all that junk out and seeing all kinds of stuff. And then I really discovered a faith of my own, being like, okay, as soon as I met my North Point Community Church family, and which is where I lead worship now, and it's like, okay, this is a daily walk thing. This isn't, you know, it's okay to not be okay, you know. And I learned that because I grew up walking into church and everything's perfect, you know.
Yeah.
And having accountability and just really desiring to grow on a daily basis. And it's a relationship. You know, my prayers didn't have to be, dear God, blah, blah, blah. It could be like, hey God, just want to tell you I love you today. Thank you for this sunrise you gave me today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a relationship. It's a, you know, I always like to say, Clay Scroggins, my friend, pastor friend, he says, you know, yeah, God loves you, but he likes you.
Yeah.
Like, that's super cool. Like, he wants to be with you as a friend, even, you know, like, well, I think when we're little, we hear Jesus is my best friend, but it's true. Like, God likes you, you know. I think that's cool, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I started learning that, and I'm still learning that, you know, you never stop learning, but I'm learning that in my adult life of, hey, God wants to be with me, you know, even though I mess up all the time and daily, you know, he wants to be with me, you know. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's a realization that we all need to be able to have, you know, is that God's just not this far off figure, you know, that you read about and you never experience, but he is, you know, right next to you. He's part of who you are. He loves you. He made you, you know, he cultivated every bit of you. And for us to realize that, I think brings us to a more intimate place with God. And I think that's a lot of what's missing. And it's been my prayer that this has been part of what I hope we come back around to as a church, is that through all of this and through missing, you know, the quote unquote church, you know, that's the church building, but just missing what that is, that we come to a more intimate understanding that, A, we're all in the same messed up boat. And B, that we can all just lay that out as the church, you know, forget the building itself, but let's start laying out, you know, what the church is supposed to be. And that's a bunch of broken people that's loved by God. And I hope that, I hope and pray that's where we can get back to on that. So
yeah, that's great, man.
Well,